Shocking lives of Audrey Hepburn's kids today will leave you speechless. Audrey Hepburn. The name itself is pure cinema, a whisper of impossible elegance and charm. She wasn't just an actress. She was a global phenomenon, an icon whose grace seemed almost otherworldly in films like Roman Holiday and Breakfast at Tiffany's. Millions adored her, mesmerized by her beauty and talent, captivated by her unique blend of vulnerability and strength. Her impact extended far beyond the silver screen, influencing fashion, culture, and a timeless ideal of effortless sophistication that endures to this day. Yet, behind the luminous screen presence and the meticulously crafted public image lay a life marked by unexpected hardship, the lingering scars of wartime trauma in her Dutch childhood, turbulent loves that played out, at times, under public scrutiny, and a profound personal growth that led her down an entirely new path. By the twilight of her life, the spotlight had shifted from actress to humanitarian, trading red carpets for famine zones, Chanel No. 5 for mosquito nets, and audiences for starving children. This woman, who gave so much to the world, gave even more to two very specific souls, her sons. But what becomes of the children of an icon? How do you grow up under the eternal gaze of the world? Especially when that gaze isn't even pointed at you, but at the memory of your mother? What secrets did they inherit? And what are Sean Hepburn Ferrer and Luca Dotti doing now, decades after the curtain fell on their mother's extraordinary life? Sean Hepburn Ferrer was born into a world already buzzing with his mother's immense fame. Arriving in 1960, he was the product of the union between two celebrated figures, Audrey, then arguably at the absolute peak of her Hollywood reign following films like The Nun Story and Breakfast at Tiffany's, and Mel Ferrer, an accomplished actor, director, and producer whose own significant career sometimes seemed unfairly overshadowed by his luminous wife's superstardom. Their relationship was intense, deeply creative, characterized by shared artistic ambitions, yet also frequently fraught with tension, a dynamic Sean would experience firsthand as he navigated his early years within their often turbulent private sphere. While his mother was the epitome of effortless style and polished perfection on screen, her private life, though shielded more fiercely than many of her contemporaries, was far from a simple fairy tale. Multiple heartbreaking miscarriages before Sean's birth underscored a deep, persistent longing for family, a desire perhaps intensified by her own fragmented and difficult childhood experiences during the war in occupied Netherlands. Their eventual move to Switzerland, specifically to the quiet village of Tolochenaz, seeking refuge from the relentless public eye and the pressures of Hollywood, offered a semblance of normalcy, a chance for Audrey to create the stable home environment she craved. But normalcy is always a relative term when your mother is Audrey Hepburn and visitors like the legendary Gregory Peck or the iconic fashion designer Hubert de Givenchy drop by for tea on a regular basis, bringing the outside world to their secluded haven. Sean's childhood was thus a truly unique blend of experiences, periods spent in formal European boarding schools, offering structure and discipline, juxtaposed with transatlantic travel and time in exquisite homes in Europe and America. He lived amidst the constant, low hum of celebrity, the perpetual awareness that his mother was not just a parent but a global figure. He saw the immense demands placed upon his mother, the constant pull between her roles as a global star required for filming and promotion, and her deep desire to be a present, nurturing parent. The Ferrer-Hepburn marriage lasted 14 years, a significant chapter in both their lives, but eventually succumbed to the pressures of their divergent careers and lifestyles, ending in divorce in 1968 when Sean was 8 years old. Divorce is inherently difficult for any child, bringing disruption and emotional pain. But for the son of a beloved icon, it adds another highly visible layer to the public narrative, another piece of the carefully constructed perfect image seemingly cracking under relentless public scrutiny. As a young man, it seemed almost inevitable that Sean would orbit the creative world that had so thoroughly defined his parents. He dipped his toes into film production, a logical step for someone steeped in the industry from birth, intimately familiar with its mechanics and personnel. He worked on various projects, learning the intricate ropes behind the camera, a place perhaps more comfortable, less exposed, than being in front of it, where comparisons to his mother's legendary screen presence would be relentless and utterly unavoidable. But producing films was, and is, a tough, competitive business, demanding its own kind of relentless drive, networking, and resilience. Was he pursuing his own genuine passion for filmmaking? Or was he trying to find a viable place, a role where he could be effective? Within a kingdom of art and commerce built by his mother and father, this profound question hangs heavy over the children of legends, a constant challenge to define their own path. The true turning point, the path that would ultimately define much of Sean's adult life and purpose, came not from the film set, but from profound loss. When Audrey Hepburn passed away in January 1993, the world mourned the loss of an icon with an outpouring of grief. But for her sons, the loss was intensely personal. The void left by a beloved mother, swiftly followed by the daunting and complex reality of managing the vast legacy she left behind. And what a legacy it was, not just film rights, photographs, and personal possessions, but an enduring image, a global brand, a symbol of enduring grace, and, significantly, a deep and powerful connection to the world of humanitarian aid through her tireless, passionate work with UNICEF. Sean stepped forward, taking on a leading and highly visible role in stewarding his mother's estate and actively advocating for her charitable work. This wasn't just a job. It was an inheritance of immense public and private responsibility, fraught with potential pitfalls and complex challenges. The world felt it owned Audrey Hepburn, or at least a significant part of her image and story. Everyone seemed to have an opinion on how her image should be used, protected, or potentially commercialized. Navigating this complex legal and ethical labyrinth required not only a keen business sense and a deep understanding of intellectual property law, but also, perhaps most crucially, an unwavering personal belief in preserving the integrity and genuine spirit of his mother's memory and values. But stewarding a legacy is rarely a smooth, serene process. Whispers of disagreements, philosophical differences, and legal skirmishes have occasionally surfaced over the years, suggesting that even the most elegant of inheritances can be fertile ground for conflict. Reports of legal disputes between Sean and his half-brother Luca over the ownership and exhibition of their mother's belongings, dresses, photos, memorabilia, painted a picture of underlying tension. Were these just logistical disagreements over complex assets, or did they reflect deeper, unresolved differences in how each son felt their mother's memory should be honored and shared with a world that never stopped wanting more of her? These disputes, though sometimes framed as necessary legal maneuvers to protect the estate, added a layer of public drama to a family that had often sought privacy. They hinted that the polished image of unity might, at times, be a carefully maintained facade. In 2003, Sean authored a significant book about his mother, titled Audrey Hepburn, An Elegant Spirit. More than a simple chronological biography, it felt like a personal declaration, his personal testament to the woman he knew intimately, perhaps aiming to define his mother for the world, or even to solidify her image for himself amidst the myriad public perceptions. Writing such a book is an act of profound intimacy and remembrance, but also one that inherently opens the floodgates to public scrutiny and commentary. Was it a therapeutic process of working through grief, or another step onto a stage he never explicitly chose for himself? He also became a vocal and active advocate for the Audrey Hepburn Children's Fund, a foundation dedicated to continuing the humanitarian torch she had carried so passionately and effectively in her final years. This work connected him directly to the part of his mother's life that resonated most deeply with many people, her tireless efforts for the less fortunate, particularly children. It provided him with clear purpose, a noble cause tied directly and undeniably to her name and values. But did it also, perhaps inevitably, blur the lines between his own identity and hers even further in the public eye? Today, Sean Hepburn Ferrer continues his role as a guardian of the Hepburn legacy. He is involved in various projects related to his mother's image, her films, and her humanitarian message. He gives interviews, participates in documentaries, carefully curating the public perception of Audrey for new generations. It's a demanding role, requiring constant vigilance against misuse or misrepresentation of her image. He is forever intertwined with the myth, a keeper of the flame who, in his own way, has found a unique form of purpose in carrying forward the spirit of his extraordinary mother. But the question lingers. In dedicating so much of his life to preserving her identity, has he had the space to fully forge his own outside of the shadow? Or is his identity now inextricably linked to hers, a permanent echo in the elegant halls of her legacy? While Sean Hepburn Ferrer navigated the complex, often public demands of managing his mother's global legacy and estate, His younger half-brother, Luca Dotti, seemed for many years to walk a path deliberately less traveled by the relentless glare of the public spotlight. Born in 1970 in Rome, Luca's arrival into the world was framed by a different, perhaps quieter, chapter in Audrey's life, her marriage to Andrea Dotti, a distinguished and respected Italian psychiatrist. This period saw Audrey make a conscious decision to semi-retire from Hollywood's demanding leading roles, choosing instead a life focused more intently on family, her beloved homes in Switzerland and Italy, and escaping the constant pressure of filmmaking. Luca's childhood, at least outwardly and initially, might have appeared closer to a conventional upbringing than Sean's, especially when compared to the jet-setting, studio-dictated pace of his mother's early career peak. He grew up primarily in Rome, surrounded by his father's large and influential Italian family, immersed in a culture renowned for its deep emphasis on family life, tradition, and privacy within the home. Yet, even here, the long shadow of his mother's global fame persisted. Paparazzi interest in Audrey and her new, seemingly more normal life, the age difference between his parents, the inherent fascination with any child of such a globally recognized figure, Luca was never simply Luca Dotti in the eyes of the world. He was, and would always be, Audrey Hepburn's son, a label that carried unspoken expectations and attention. His father, Andrea Dotti, was a successful and respected psychiatrist, a man dedicated to his profession and distinct from the entertainment world. However, the marriage between Audrey and Andrea was reportedly tumultuous and eventually succumbed to the significant pressures of differing lifestyles, cultural backgrounds, and the unavoidable public scrutiny that followed Audrey, ending in the early 1980s when Luca was still a young boy. For a young boy, witnessing the unraveling of his parents' relationship, even one potentially less publicly scrutinized than his mother's first marriage, would have been deeply impactful, shaping his understanding of relationships and fame. He saw the woman behind the icon navigate heartbreak, vulnerability, and the difficult choices of single parenthood once again, experiencing her very human struggles up close. Unlike Sean, who stepped into the realm of film production, Luca initially pursued a path seemingly unrelated to the dazzling world of entertainment, graphic design. This choice felt deliberate, a quiet sidestep away from the obvious career trajectory, perhaps an unconscious or conscious effort to build a life and identity distinct from the one that had defined his mother and brother. Graphic design is a creative field, certainly, but it often operates behind the scenes, focusing on structure, form, and visual communication for others, a stark contrast to the larger-than-life performance required of an actor or the public-facing role of a legacy manager. Luca was in his early 20s when his mother passed away. He had witnessed her remarkable transformation in her final years, her tireless dedication to UNICEF, traveling to some of the world's most challenging places, her fame used not for personal gain, but for global good. This phase of her life, lived with fierce purpose and compassion, undoubtedly left a profound mark on her youngest son. While Sean took on the mantle of active public guardianship of the estate, Luca's approach to honoring his mother's memory seemed, for a time, more personal, more rooted in shared private experience. He co-authored books that offered intimate glimpses into Audrey's life, most notably Audrey at Home, Memories of My Mother's Kitchen, 2015. This book wasn't about the movie star. It was about the woman who cooked pasta, who loved simple food, who created a warm home life despite the chaos swirling around her. Through recipes, anecdotes, and personal photographs, Luca shared a side of Audrey that the world rarely saw: the mother, the homebody, the lover of life's simple pleasures. It was a powerful act of remembrance, presenting a counter-narrative to the untouchable icon, making her relatable, human, and profoundly maternal. However, the shared responsibility of managing a legacy as vast and valuable as Audrey Hepburn's inevitably brought the brothers together in a professional, and sometimes contentious, capacity. The reports of legal disputes over their mother's personal property, the very items that represented her private life, highlighted the challenges they faced. While Luca's book focused on the feeling of home, the legal battles centered on the physical objects from that home. The dresses, the scripts, the photographs. These conflicts raised questions. Were they fighting over possessions, or over who had the right interpretation of their mother's life? Did one brother feel the other was capitalizing too much, or not enough, on different aspects of her memory? These public skirmishes added a layer of unwelcome drama to the carefully cultivated image of Audrey's elegant legacy, suggesting that beneath the surface, managing her memory could be a source of strain between the sons. Despite these public reports of friction, Luca, like Sean, remains actively involved in the Audrey Hepburn estate and her humanitarian legacy. He serves on the board of the Audrey Hepburn Children's Fund, carrying forward the commitment to helping vulnerable children, a cause so dear to his mother's heart. His participation in documentaries and interviews often focuses on his personal memories, offering a son's perspective on the icon. His voice is one of quiet warmth and deep affection, providing a crucial human element to the larger-than-life story. Today, Luca Dotti continues to balance his professional life with his role as a steward of his mother's memory. His contributions feel rooted in preserving the intimate side of Audrey's, ensuring that the world remembers not just the star on screen, but the kind, resilient, and loving woman who created a home for her sons. He has, in his own way, transformed the inheritance of being Audrey's son into a platform for sharing her humanity, reminding everyone that behind the legend was a mother, a woman who found profound joy in simple things and devoted her final energies to making a difference in the world. He has found his purpose not by imitating her fame, but by illuminating her heart. The stories of Sean Hepburn Ferrer and Luca Dotti are not just biographies of two men. They are case studies in the complex, often dramatic reality of being an heir to a global icon. They reveal that the shadow of greatness is not merely a metaphor, it is a tangible force that shapes identity, influences choices, and presents unique challenges that most people will never comprehend. They inherited not billions in cash, but something arguably more complex and potent: a name, an image, a myth. And with that inheritance came the weight of expectation, the pressure to be worthy, the constant, quiet hum of comparison. The world wanted to see Audrey in them, wanted them to embody her grace or continue her path. But they were not Audrey. They were her sons, forged by her love. Yes, but also by her absences, her struggles, her very human complexities that the public rarely saw. Their paths diverged significantly. Sean, the elder, perhaps more exposed to the mechanics of the entertainment world from an earlier age, stepped directly into the role of public guardian, navigating the intricate legal and commercial landscape of a global brand. His work, often involving legal battles and public representation, placed him firmly within the architecture of the legacy, a necessary, demanding, and often fraught position. He took on the burden of protecting the image, sometimes having to fight publicly for control, a drama played out in court documents rather than movie scripts, but drama nonetheless. His choice felt almost like destiny, answering a call to stewardship that came with his birthright. Luca, the younger, perhaps afforded a slightly more insulated childhood by his mother's semi-retirement, initially sought refuge in a career outside the glaring lights. His graphic design work was behind the scenes, his approach to the legacy more personal, focusing on the intimate memories shared within the family circle. His contribution felt like an offering of authenticity, a gentle correction to the sometimes unreachable image of the icon. He chose to share the mother, not just the star, finding power in vulnerability and shared humanity. Yet, despite their differing approaches, their lives remain inextricably linked by the woman who was their mother. The reported disagreements over her belongings underscore the inherent difficulty of sharing such a powerful, personal history with the world and with each other. These weren't just legal squabbles. They hinted at different ways of processing grief, different ideas about what parts of Audrey belonged to them privately versus what parts belonged to the world. They speak to the challenge of finding common ground when navigating shared memory and immense public interest. The greatest drama in their lives, perhaps, has been the internal one. The struggle for self-definition under a name that is instantly recognizable but not their own. How do you build your own purpose when your mother's purpose, on screen and off, was so monumental? How do you forge authentic relationships when people might see you first as Audrey's son? These are the quiet battles fought away from the cameras, the psychological weight carried unseen. Today, Sean and Luca continue their roles as the primary keepers of the Audrey Hepburn flame, albeit through their distinct lenses. They oversee foundations, participate in commemorative events, and ensure that their mother's voice, particularly her advocacy for children, continues to be heard. They are the bridge between the icon and the present day, interpreting her meaning for new generations. Their story is a poignant reminder that the most glittering legacies can cast the deepest shadows. Sean and Luca Hepburn Ferrer and Dottie have not just lived in their mother's shadow. They have learned to navigate it, sometimes stumbling, sometimes disagreeing, but ultimately finding ways to honor the woman who gave them life. They have shown that carrying a legendary name is a complex inheritance, filled with both privilege and burden, public duty and private pain. They did not ask to be born into a myth, but they have spent their lives grappling with its reality, finding their own purpose, their own light, in the enduring, elegant, and sometimes mysterious legacy of Audrey Hepburn. They are her sons, and their lives are the ongoing, unfolding chapters of a story that began long ago on a screen, but continues, quietly and complexly, in the real world.